So Daniel Farke's Leeds look like they're going to be taking the Championship by storm this season. They've just beaten Chris Wilder's unbeaten Sheffield United 2-0. It didn't even look difficult. It genuinely looks like Leeds could be champions by March time this season after the win that they got last night. I'm going to outline the tactics which they used, how their start to the season's gone, a little bit about Sheffield United as well, because going into it, they looked, like a really good side. There was above Leeds in the table with a -2 points deduction, and everything looks like it's flipped now. So let's get into it. Hold yourself there. Just before we start, I am going to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Takes 2 seconds. Hit the bell notification button as well so you never miss an upload on my football content. Last season, Leeds lost in the playoff final to Russell Martin Southampton 1-0. An Adam Armstrong goal meant that Leeds had to stay in the Championship again. They were very much the 4th best team in the Championship last season. Maybe not the 4th best, but they were in the top 4 teams. All of them achieved around 90 points. Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton and Leeds. And Leeds were the unlucky team not to get promotion. Archie Gray, Jorginho Rutter, Crescencio Somerville, Glenn Kamara all left in the summer. But they had players like Brendan Aronson and Matteo Joseph still at the club. And the squad still looks really, really strong. A player like Nonto wasn't even getting into the first team last season at times. And then they obviously did reinforce the squad with players like Jayden Bogle, for example, coming from Sheffield United, potentially their best player last season. And they've just looked so strong. So far this season, 10 games, Leeds have won 5, drawing 4 and only losing 1. And to be honest, it's basically common knowledge that Leeds have been like the best side in all of their matches. Although they haven't won all of them, the one that potentially personifies it the best is the game that they had on the first day of the season at home to Portsmouth. They had 69% possession. They had 22 shots to Portsmouth's 5. They drew it 3-3 just because in both boxes, it just didn't go their way really. Obviously, they could have been a bit more clinical. Obviously, the goals that Portsmouth scored maybe could have been stopped, but it just personifies how they've been. And I honestly think that, in a parallel universe, they've got 30 points in their 10 games this season. And with Daniel Farke at the helm, potentially the best Championship manager in the past decade, getting Norwich promoted twice, with the squad that he's got at Leeds, with the way that he's got them playing, the confidence that they've got, he's really enforced his style of play on them. There's no stopping them. And then you look at a bit of context for Sheffield United. Last season conceding 104 goals, getting relegated to the Championship. Chris Wilder's back at the helm, 16 players out, 10 players in, a complete revamp of the squad. So far this season, they've had an unbeaten start. And if it wasn't for the -2 points deduction, they'd be top of the league. But there is knowledge around the Sheffield United fan base and around potentially other EFL fans that, the fact that they've had an unbeaten start doesn't mean that they're the finished article. It doesn't mean that, they're going to romp the title, because that's just not how it is. And you could see it in this game. Leeds set up with a 4-2-3-1, very attacking structure. When they're going forward, it's a 2-2-6, which not many teams, if any teams, have ever really done that in the Championship in terms of just the intense attacking play. Bogle and Firpo are both down the wings, which means that Ramazani and Nonto could free roam. Sheffield United had a man-marking structure. Reece Norrington-Davis was told to stay to Willie Nonto. And as you can see, Willie Nonto was coming so far deep to the point where Reece Norrington-Davis was like, right, if I'm trying to check my man, Sheffield United are going to end up with me on the left wing, which means that there's going to be a massive gap in the defence. So what do I do? So in the end, Leeds found a counter to that man-marking quite well. I thought Tanaka and Rothwell at CDM was incredible. Every time that Sheffield United even had a little glimpse of a counter-attack, it was cut out by them. Bear in mind that it's normally Ampadu and Grove that play there, so this is potentially their second choice defensive midfield pairing. And in terms of play, it was really tidy. There was times where Rodon or Stroy could go forward, and usually Tanaka or Rothwell, mainly Tanaka, covered for that. So the players all understand the structure so well. They know it's a 2-2-6. If Rodon goes forward, Tanaka drops back, stays at 2-2-6, just the players intertwining. And Sheffield United this season, as I say, they've been playing a 4-2-3-1. It's been a bit of a 3-2-5 in possession, which a lot of the greatest teams sort of play in these days. Burrows would push on in the left, Gilchrist would drop in. But for this game, Chris Wilder and Alan Neil, they both knew that Sheffield United needed to drop back. They needed to be structured, and they needed to nullify Leeds as best they could. So it was a 5-1-2-2 shape. And I say 5-1-2-2 because Vinny Souza in that pivot, was man-marking Brendan Aronson, or not necessarily man-marking, but keeping track of him. And the two ahead of Vinny Souza in Hamer and Arblaster, they were trying to keep a hold to an extent of the centre defensive midfield pairing that Leeds had, and calling it a 5-3-2 would be completely false. And the fact is, as I say, Leeds attack with a 2-2-6. Brendan Aronson is part of that 6. So To stop him, you've got to have a really deep midfielder marking him. As I said earlier in the video, it's a new squad for Sheffield United. A lot of players are still bedding in. The tactics are not the finished article at all, and it just didn't work. In the first 10 minutes, there was a couple of, half chances, if you can even call them that, for Sheffield United. It looked like they were getting in. It looked like they were finding gaps in that Leeds defence, but ultimately Leeds cut that out. And for the remaining, 80 minutes of the match, Sheffield United couldn't really cause any attacking situations. There's a couple of times where Callum O'Hare had looked like he's in behind, but, Pascal Strike or Joe Rodon would just be like, nope, not today. Bully him out of the way. Back to Meslier. Leeds attack again. But as I say, this is the first loss for Sheffield United this season. There's not too much to panic about because there's a process there to follow. After how it was last season, the fact is Sheffield United are in the top 6. They've lost 1 game this season. It's not the end of the world. The main thing that I am worried about is the squad is very thin. Vinny Souza got suspended in the match against Leeds, and that means that it's potentially going to be a double pivot of Sidney Peck and Arblaster, and then on the bench, potentially the only replacement for that is bringing Jamie Shackleton out of position or moving Gus Harmer deep, and there's just not much depth in that squad, as I say. And as the season goes on, as we get close to that Christmas time where it's Saturday, Tuesday, it's going to be more intense. And is the squad going to be able to handle it? We'll have to see. And for Leeds, as I say, their best players potentially, or their best holding midfielders in Grove and Ampadu were out for this match. Manor Solomon and Danny James came back for this match after injuries, and bringing those players into the fold alongside what started last night, alongside what was already on the bench last night. Matteo Joseph came off the bench to score the the killer blow. It's going to be tough for anybody to stop Leeds this season. It genuinely wouldn't surprise me if they go on to romp the league with like over 100 points, if they've basically certified promotion by like March time, April time. I can see a world where that happens. And Daniel Farke, as I say, with a good squad, he'll get results. And he's shown that with Leeds. The fact is that compared to last season's Championship, it's nowhere near as strong as the top end. Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton got promoted, which means that Leeds are the only team from last season which were significantly good. They're relegated 3 this season. Luton are struggling. Sheffield United, a total revamp, thin squad. Burnley with Scott Parker are looking good, but the underlying numbers aren't really saying as much. So we'll have to see for this season, but Leeds are going to be going up in my opinion. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Are they going to go up? Am I overhyping them? Am I underselling them? I don't think I can really be underselling them. What do you think, Sheffield United? Let me know. I recently uploaded a video on the controversial rise of Aston Villa. 4 minutes 20, you don't want to miss it. Get watching it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.